Let's talk about cold adaptation then. The other thing, chickens are much hardier than we think they are, and do not try to personalize your feelings about being cold onto your chickens, because it does not translate at all. And there is, with every animal, with humans as well as with chickens, there's a cold adaptation that they need to go through. And just as, and now we're starting to get colder in the winter, you know, the days are getting shorter, they're getting colder, you see more people with sweaters on. Well, the chickens their metabolism is adapting to that too. So you want to get them gradual over time, which is to say, don't use a heat lamp in the coop. You don't want to raise that temperature going up and down like a yo-yo in the coop. It's more important to keep it steady than it is to have it hot at night or during the day. And these birds, at night, they can easily survive sub-zero temperatures because they're tucked in, they've got they put their head, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but they can keep themselves pretty well warm. What they can't stand is, they can withstand easily temperatures down to 0 and a lot lower in the nighttime. What'll kill a chicken is high moisture and drafts. They cannot stand cold drafts. There's a book called Open Face Shelters that was done in, I think it was Utah, or where they through those harsh winters that they had there, had an open face coop. And they found that the chickens were fine as long as they were out of the draft and didn't have a moist condition where they got chilled to the bone. Here's your inside coop considerations. And this is a little more wording than I usually like to have, but you don't want to cram them in. They need elbow room, just like, it's so cute. People say, well, I've got this much perch space. How many birds can I have? And the standard response is, well, allow about 12 inches for each bird. And it takes not into consideration how big is the bird. Are some birds a little more pushing than others? So I've got a 5-foot wide bed. How many people can I fit in that bed? You know, it's kind of the same thing. Well, you can sit 2 kids and maybe a dog. So your flock will tell you how much room space they need, and smaller birds need less. Of course, larger birds need more. But if you're finding birds are getting shoved down off the roost, or if you might need to put up another set of perches for them. So you want to have enough room. And they are closer together in the winter. They tolerate space more together in the winter than they do in the summer. The summer, they want to be spread out because it's hot. They'll even need to have their wings. So that's one of the ways they can then cool off, is they'll cool off through their wings. Protection from the sun, wind, and rain. A lot of this is just common sense. You really want to keep out rodents and predators. So I suggest raise coops up off the ground about 12 to 18 inches. Then the rodents don't have any place to burrow and live. And if they can't do that, and they can't get in the walls, you can pretty much have total predator protection. They can burrow, but light during the daytime, roosting space, more than enough.
I don't have chickens either, but what do you mean? Isn't a coop dark?
Yeah. Which one are you questioning?
Windows in your coops?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is that absolutely necessary?
No. Okay, and then to winterize your coop, we're going to go through a set of different kinds of coop, and you can tell me then how you would winterize it if it were your coop. The north side or the prevailing wind, whichever that is, you want to protect that side of the coop especially. We lived in Vermont for a while, and 40 below with the wind chill factor, we had double-walled coops. I mean, that was, and we did provide extra heat, because that was, even with the winter breeze, 40 below, our dog couldn't go out to go to the bathroom because it freezes his little feet. So there are extremes, but you guys don't have extremes. You shouldn't need any heat lamp at all in your coop. South-facing windows and doors, if you do have them. Good ventilation. Now I'm going to keep coming back at this, and you're going to think I'm redundant, but I got to tell you, I see these coops, and they're tight as a coffin, and the ammonia builds up, the moisture builds up. We're going to come back to that, but it's really unhealthy for the bird. They get respiratory problems. Good drainage around the coop, and then just a consistent, nighttime is different, but consistent temperature, not bouncing up and down.
So how are you keeping a consistent temperature if you're not using the
I let the nature do it. Yeah, I don't try to really moderate it at all. I'll keep warm water. I'm going to get to that. But so here's your formula: is that freezing temperatures plus moisture is equal to frostbite. I'm going to tell you a little about frostbite's serious in birds. Freezing temperatures and moisture can cause frostbite. It's most likely to occur overnight. The moisture in the coop, if you got that coop really airtight and you think, oh, there are no drafts that can get in there, you have to have ventilation, which is different than drafts. My birds are safe. Well, what happened is about 85% of the manure is moisture. These heavy birds, they respirate a lot of moisture. And if you open the coop or go inside and you can see any kind of dripping, this is the same thing if you're brooding, baby chicks. If you open the brooder blanket or if you see any kind of moisture in there, it's way too humid and you need to add more ventilation to it. Otherwise, you're going to probably get respiratory problems and frostbite. I would somehow get some vents in there. Not holes, don't just blow holes in your coop, but they have these little vent screens and they've got the louvers on them.
So deep bedding, I mean, we would be talking like 3 feet of bedding, and then they wouldn't have any space to walk.
More like 1 foot.
Okay, so then that would still leave a significant amount of wire to let air in. So it's like
Yeah, it'll breathe. It'll breathe.
Okay.
But if you see moisture in there, that can do it.
But that's not too
If you can stay just 5 more minutes, I'm going to go through a lot of these.
I can see that.
Okay. This was 2 years ago. I thought my coop was winterized. And then we had something like the polar vortex come down. And the winds were literally horizontal. I mean, it was one of the coldest. And even my house had drafts coming through my house. So I went out in the morning and I was stunned. This was what I saw. And I go, oh my God, the birds were all fine. They'd survived the night okay. They were roosting just below the eaves, so they were kind of down below it. But all that snow in there, and in the feeders and the nest boxes, it was just amazing. So here's what you do for the rafters of your coop, especially you get some of these sheds or whatever. Put up. This is hardwire. This is for predator proofing. And what predators are going to get up there? Probably black snakes, not in the winter, of course, but owls can get up and get under eaves, especially the smaller ones. But anyway, so I put up this predator proofing, and then in if you get only oriented to this is the wall here. That's the roof. It's a metal roof, and then this is the gap. And a lot of shelters just have that gap there, and that's what I had when that snowdrift ended up inside my coop. So what I've done since then is you can't see it, but there is hardwire under there, and then I'm putting boards across that to block the draft. So that'll be totally covered along there, so there won't be any draft that can possibly come in with vertical winds, 40 to 50 mile an hour winds coming in. So that's one place that I'd overlooked, and it's easy to do. No, in the summer then I take them off because they need to be cool. It cools them off really well. Plastic construction grade plastic on the doors or windows works great. Just staple them in, bam, 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 bam. You want to make sure that you don't leave any staples on the ground or those that are loose, because the birds are attracted to shiny things. So if they can eat those little staples, and then it gets caught in their craw, and that can cause serious problems. So any staples or screws or shiny thing, glass even. Now here's a very popular chicken coop model. How would you winterize this coop? What would you do? What I do is see there's no ventilation up here. I'd put some vents in. On the north side, whichever the north side is, I'd put that into plastic or plywood, whatever. I'd probably put some prevention around the bottom here, and I'd put deep litter on the bottom of the floor to insulate the floor of it. That's what I'd do for this coop. This coop is in Michigan, by the way. It's up in Madison. Deep litter, like shavings, wood shavings, or grass clippings. I'm a big fan of the deep litter. Now, if it were too, like there's not much room there. If I didn't have room on the floor, then I might even on this small an area put some foam insulation and then plywood on top of that, because chickens will eat foam. I don't know why. It's like cotton candy to them. They just seem to go. But
Temperature do you want to start putting the plastic coverings and boards?
Well, the winds. Again, it's draft control more than temperature control. So even in the summer, some of these rains that come in, like this, I just left this on all summer. I just took this picture 2 days ago. And we've had such heavy rains that literally, if that plastic weren't there, almost half of the bedding in that whole thing would be wet. I'd have to clean it out. But the front is open. The other side of this mini barn is, by the way, this is an old hay wagon. This used to be our layaway, what we called our eggmobile. It's on an old hay wagon frame. Okay, so here on the site, how would you winterize this little coop here? By the way, that's a garden bed. She's got a raised bed on top of her coop. That's from the Seattle Tilth Coop Core. So what would you do?
I might put something on the top that would make it warmer.
Up here? Well, it's got the shelter already, so there's some protection from the. Yeah, it's the corrugated sort of roofing. Yeah, she might need a little more ventilation. I don't know what's in front, but if you can have ventilation from all sides. It looks like her window's covered, so that's good. That's a little window thing. So whichever direction the main wind comes from in the winter, I'd put some protection there, and maybe even during the day. And that's about it. That's a pretty good coop. That's probably just check the ventilation again. And then this one.
Seal at the top.
Yeah, I put a tarp or something over the run so they could have protection if a heavy snowfall or rain or freezing rain. You get a cold, wet chicken, you've probably got some respiratory problems coming. Not all of them, because some of them can shed the water better than others. Silkies, anyone have silkies? You know, they have this literally hair-like feathers, and the water goes right through. If they get wet, they just get totally drenched. They have no protection. So that's one thing about silkies. I'd probably put deep litter in here. It looks like there's a wire bedding there, wire floor, so I could either surround this like you would a trailer house. You know, there's a reason they put a surround around trailer houses to keep that draft from going up and underneath. And I think they'll probably put plastic over this face. I think that's probably a wire. Okay.
For the winter, can you use hay? Can you use straw or hay?
Yeah.
Have you found that causes mites and lice? Somebody told me that, and I was using that, and I had issues.
In the winter, can you use straw and hay? Straw is a little better because it has a hollow shaft. Hay tends to mat. What you can do is mix straw and hay with like wood shavings, and then every day what I like to do is I put some scratch in on top of underneath where they roost. I have thresholds, I guess I call them. Whatever. I don't want them to scratch to toss the bedding over that. Let me back up. Where the chickens roost, about half of their manure is deposited at night. So I want to collect that manure. I micromanage that manure because to me it's more valuable than oil. It has more nutrients in it, more enzymes, more all kinds of good stuff. It's 45% organic matter. So I want to collect that. So I have deep litter underneath, which is about that much of wood shavings or grass clippings, whatever I have. They manure, I toss some scratch in on top, and they go down, they scratch it all up. And what do they do when they scratch it? They're covering it. I don't want to have any exposed manure in the coop. That's when it stinks. That's when the flies come. So that's when problems happen. So they cover it over as they're scratching. They kind of make their bed up every day. And we learned that when we had goats. Had goats that were helping to clear a forest, a little forest area. And they had hay. Of course, goats are messy. They'll pull the hay down that's all over they really waste it. So, and it was really smelling awful down there of ammonia. And I said, okay, this is not good management. So we stationed some older hens down there. I think they were 3 years old. And all I did is just sort of fluffed it up to get a start, and then I tossed some scratch in on top, and the chickens would go, and they were aerating the bedding. They did a beautiful job of it, and they were eating the flies and the larvae. And, so we had literally, it freshened it up, and every day they would freshen it up. So I just brought that up to my coops and do that now. And you can go in my coop anytime in the hottest time, or as long as the bedding stays dry, you will not. There's no ammonia smell. It doesn't smell at all like most chicken coops used to, the old-fashioned style. Yeah.
I've been using mowed leaves, like a lot of mowed leaves, and it almost turns into this fine powder at the bottom that's like this clumping action.
Uh-huh.
I really like it.
Yeah. He said he's been using mowed leaves and putting that in there, and gosh, once the droppings go on top of there, yeah. In fact, it partly composts. I mean, you can almost come up in the spring with stuff that's ready to go in the garden, and it's real rich and thick. I just kind of scrape it through, and it's like, oh, this is good stuff. Yeah.
What about wood sawdust?
What about wood stove ashes?
Sawdust.
Well, the problem with sawdust is it's so fine, and they might eat that instead of their feed, and then they can get a compacted crawl. So I don't use just sawdust. Now, wood ashes, Sometimes, it's like lime, basically. The pH is just about, and I treat it like lime. So if I do notice that even though after I mix it up, there's a little bit of ammonia coming, I'll just sprinkle some of the wood ashes on top and mix that in, and it takes care of it right away. So, huh?
Mites and lice, wood ashes, they'll actually be all in it.
Yeah. Now, mites and lice, I don't have a slide on that, but so let me just talk about it. The red mites are they're the big problems mainly in the summer when it's really hot and humid, but they can be there in the winter. They live in the wood. And what you can do if you take a white tissue or towel or cloth, and at night, if you just rub it along there or rub it under and you get little gray streaks, you've got red mites. You won't see them during the day. They're only night feeders. And sometimes if chickens won't go back in the coop, it's because they're feeling so creepy about the mites. So I didn't realize how bad they were until when we had our farm, had a turkey nest that was out of particle board. And we treated it we used pyrethium and treated it with the spray and still had mites. So finally we just ended up burning that nest box. It was an A-frame kind of nest box. And what I saw was just jaw-dropping to me. As the flames were coming up, there was a flood of red mites coming out of that particle board. I mean, they had just gone in between that's why it's called particle board, I guess. But they were living in the niches and a place where the spray couldn't get. So I suggest do not use particle board for coop construction. That'll keep the red mites out. Now body lice on chickens, it's not that uncommon. They are not the same lice that people get. You cannot get lice from your chickens. So don't worry about it. If you see one running up your arm, don't freak out. It's a totally different, there are something like 1,000 different kinds of lice in the world. They're just soft-bodied. But what I do then is I'll use DE.
I was worried about that the bedding was what was causing it because I was using straw and I've switched to pine shavings now. And I thought that was a better option because, I don't know. I mean, I've treated everything with diatomaceous and neem oil and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so she's treated everything for the red mites, or for mites, any kind of mites, and she felt the straw and the hay, and it is a harbor for them. I mean, they like that kind of environment. And then switching to shavings, it's kind of controlled them. The other thing you can do is just use, I only have metal nest boxes, metal or plastic. I can clean them. There's no space for the infestations to bed down and to breed. And I also like I think I've got a picture of it, the rubber nest box liners, because they're perforated and they let the dirt silt down. Even if it's a broken egg, it can silt through. It kind of cushions the egg as it's dropped. So there's no place for these guys to even live. Can't even get started in it. So.
Does the rosin from fresh pine shavings cause respiratory problems with the chickens?
Does the rosin from fresh pine shavings cause respiratory problems? For full-grown chickens that are not sleeping in it, they're up on the tree, I don't think it's a problem. But if you got baby chicks and you use pine shavings, in my experience, when they're about 8 weeks old, they're starting material, they'll start to get that rattle and they'll get respiratory problems. So I only use aspen shavings to brood baby chicks. Period. I don't even want to talk about any other kind of wood shavings because of the off-gassing. What smells really good to us, just try it. Stick your head in some pine shavings and take a deep breath for 5 minutes, and you'll see what those little baby chicks. I mean, they're there at knee level, almost beak level, living in that during the most formidable times. So, did that answer your question? So I think it's and cedar will kill a chicken. Never use cedar. I don't use cedar for anything. Okay, so winterproofing. This is an outhouse that was converted to a chicken coop, and I included. There's so many ways to. Oftentimes people think the chicken coop is the big barrier. That's the bottleneck. I got to get my coop just right, and there's so many ways to build coops. So this was an outhouse. This was the chickens had been in there for 3 days. This was their coming out party, and so how would I winterize this? What I do is I'd go in and any sort of larger spaces here. I'd either put board and batten over one, either inside or outside, to keep the drafts down. I don't think I need to worry about ventilation on it, and I just have deep bedding in it. Yes, she used the toilet as the nest box. But she's got pictures. You can see chicken pictures in there. There's some little night lights, and there's her feeder. It was quite cute. I mean, little ladder so they could get up nicely to their roost. It was. Yeah, it was for 3 chickens. Yeah, yeah. In fact, it's easier for them to get up the ladder than it would be to try to fly up by far in this size of a. Ladders are really important as birds get older because their joints, if they have to hop down, especially the heavier breeds, I mean, boom, and I'm going to talk about fingernails a little bit, but they'll keep them from getting arthritis. You can tell when a chicken walks kind of stiffly. Okay. I love this. This is a little playhouse turned chicken coop in the garden. So its features are for a small little garden coop. It's portable. It's raised up so there's no rodents. It just has hardwire over the door and the window. So I'd put plastic over that. I'd put deep mulch here and maybe in there, probably a threshold to keep the threshold in, to keep the stuff in. And otherwise, maybe a ventilation here and there and on the other side. But otherwise, it's a pretty airtight coop. Yeah, it's plastic. Yeah. Yeah, we're hoping that we're thinking about doing a contest about play sets turned to coops, swing sets turned to coops, and because all the kids are out now, they're even out of college. And here's an extreme coop. This is a trash can coop. So, places where chickens are illegal. But to winterize this, what would you do?
Cover the top.
I wouldn't use it. I can't imagine a chicken being happy in this at all. So I kind of put it as an example of what not to do. But if you had to use it, I'd probably bring it in the garage, and I would put ventilation holes. This has to be in the summer in the sun, just more like an oven than a. Yeah, it's got a little trolley thing. The little front here detaches. Chicken tractors. Okay, this is. Chicken tractor now is a common term, but if you were to winterize these were designed, they were made by an out-of-work carpenter, Carlos, down in Texas, and he would do, this is sort of in the gardening section, but he would do 4 raised beds and a pen that was designed to fit over them for rabbits or chickens, and then he could just hop the beds, or you could put it on the grass if you wanted to get your lawn as a mini pasture going. So to winterize this, I just put plastic around it and deep mulch, and they'd be fine. What's nice about it, if you're going to be building soil, it's sort of like a gardens to go, and you could even put this, if this were mine, and I have used this system, not necessarily this kind of a pen, but I'd put them in there for day duty, so they could mix soil amendments in and debug it and deflate it. But now another thing you can do with this kind of a structure is turn it into a little day room, an extended day room. This is exactly what this is. The chickens, you can see, chickens, when the first year they come out, they see that snow, they won't go. And here's what sometimes happens, is they just can't stand it anymore, and they'll take a, and they go over the tree, and they're like 30 feet away. And they get under the tree, and then they're stuck. And they're stuck all day. And it's dusk, and they're still stuck. So that's when you'll probably have to do a rescue. You'll have to go out or shovel a path. I've had people shovel paths so they get back in. So it takes a great leap of faith for them to get from here to over there. And they're sort of starting to go. So after you get them seasoned for a year or two, they go, oh, snow, yippee. So it's nice to have a place where they can get out. This is protection. It's got that lattice there and a plywood that's north, facing that way. The cover is good. I mean, it's a nice day place to feed them, and then I can turn that into a garden next time. Turkeys in the winter, probably the biggest thing with turkeys is you want to keep them out of mud. If they're in freezing mud, in and out, that can cause frostbite on their feet. So here's the thing that you can do in the winter for your run. This is good. It would be mud if it weren't for these shavings all around. So they got several bags of wood shavings. They protected their tree. This is a weeping mulberry bush. They've got their cans protected from rodents in metal cans. They've got a little, their coop is well ventilated. You can't see it, but the other side there's a vent, and they've got deep bedding in the bottom. So this is a nice temperate kind of. And the chickens, you can tell, they walk all over the place. They don't mind the snow there at all. Okay, floor bedding, it's pretty basic. when my view, if I've got grass clippings and they're dry or leaves or whatever, I'll mix it in with the wood shavings and I just put it in there because I know I'm going to use it in the garden. So to me, it's just sort of inoculating the wood shavings and helping it get a jump start. Cleaning coops, now like when that snowdrift ended up in my coop, I had to get all that out of there. I mean, because otherwise it would just be wet and that too much humidity. So on my roost, to clean nice and quickly, I really like using joist hangers. All these roosts here are on joist hangers. So I just go and lift them out. And then I can shovel. I've got a little threshold here, but it's the front. I take that, lift that up, and I shovel it right out into, I do have a front end loader. I shovel it onto my front end loader, and then I go either put it in the compost or whatever. So, no, I only do it about every 6 months. But if I have to do it in the winter or have to do it anytime, but otherwise I should get a picture of the inside. There's a threshold here and there's another one that goes across there, also secured with joist hangers. So this is where they sleep and I'm collecting that manure. That's my stash, I guess you'd say. Ramps are really good and put cleats on them. In the winter they can get pretty slick and they can slide down, but these birds really do like to not have to hop and flap very far. So here's the spacing that we sort of talked about a little bit. Is you can sell they're all up there. There's a little more space here, but they're doing pretty good all together. But you notice this is about 12 inches lower than that, so they're kind of crowded up here. And that's one way to get birds to train to go up if you need to. But I've also since I took this picture because. I made a lower one so I can just move this up or down. And when it's down, they'll go up the ladder and then they'll use the bottom space a little more. So height is good to a chicken. It's protection. They want to get up. But if you find that you've got a bunch of birds down here on the floor because these are all knocking them off and they don't want to be on the lower roost, just make the roost level, make the perches level. And that's another word, joist hangers. You can have several ones. When I'm training young birds to go up to roost for the chickability, what I'll do is I'll run it at a staggered level, so they'll go up, and then I'll have a light hanging there. So the birds that aren't mothered by a hen, they'll get the idea to go up. Otherwise, they don't have a clue about going up at night, and that can be a big problem. Roost spacing is important in winter as well as summer. So see this bird here, she's a pretty big bird, and see how her butt's right up against the wall? And then you can see what happens to the wall. I mean, she doesn't have nearly enough butt space there. So move, if you see that on your wall, you don't want that because just move it out, give her more room so she doesn't break her tail feathers and has more. If this were bantam, that'd probably be enough space. So again, it's all relative to what your flock is. 12 inches, that's a good rule of thumb probably, but if you get much wider than that, you might find that your little bantams fall between. If you've got Jersey Giants, that's not wide enough. They might need to be more, because they're... So it kind of depends on your space. So the other thing in winter is chickens can they'll put their heads under their wing like this young bird here, but now see, she's barely feathered out. And if you get baby chicks and see there's not much, this is a young bird that's barely about 5 weeks old, just kind of out of the... So if you're putting them out in cold weather and they don't have their head feathers done out already and their back feathers, in the winter you're going to want to keep them in longer till they fully feather out. And then gradually, don't just automatically put them out. Remember the acclimation? You want to get them to acclimated to the colder weather slowly. So that's one of the reasons why doing baby chicks in this time of year is a little more challenging than it is in the spring. Now, what's interesting is then the full birds, the hens and roosters can put their head under their wing like this, but when it's really cold, that leaves the comb exposed for frostbite. And roosters can't put their head under their wing. They can put it this way, but they can't put it under. And oftentimes you'll see a rooster, he'll try to tuck his head under the head next to him to keep his comb from freezing. So that's a feathering is an issue. Here's a bird who had the bird that was molting. This gal, she's a black Australorp. It looks like a naked neck here, but she's a black Australorp. Yeah. And I tell you, she was stunningly beautiful, but she's having trouble feathering out. And what was happening is that she'd go on the roost, and at night then, the other birds would come up and they'd see these little pin feathers coming up, and they'd peck them out. They thought they were bugs. so they peck them out. So she wasn't able to feather out because they never had a chance to grow. And then, so this is the head, this is the little cape put over it. The hen apron, they're called, and this one has little eyeballs to repel the feather. That was kind of cool. And she did feather out, but she went all winter bareback. It wasn't until spring she was finally able to feather out. See, so the books would say just put her down and do that, but you know all birds are not equal. So she's still with me.